Okay, it looks like we got a lot of people signing on now. Our YouTube is live, and I am hitting record for the Zoom now.
Chase on this. Never seen him. He's a local boy. Out of state. Yeah, I'm on mute.
I just muted you, Robert.
I guess next time I'll just have to not use my camera. I feel like I'm all front and center.
It's really weird. I don't know. Something's going on. It keeps unmuting people and stuff too. Usually, oh, there's Diana. Usually we have a lot more faces. They're coming up. There's Caroline. Hi, Diana. This is Tracy. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hello.
Mm-mm.
Hi, Tom. It's Tracy. Can you hear me?
I can, Tracy. How is everyone?
Doing well.
Hello, Nancy. This is Tracy. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hello, Brian. It's Tracy. Can you hear me? Hey, Brian. Can you hear me?
Can everyone hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
Brian, this is Tracy. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I see Tom and Nancy, Caroline. I believe our fifth member is not able to participate tonight. Is that correct? Diana?
no, she's on.
She's here.
I'm here.
I don't see on my screen. I don't have enough people up. Here we go. I can see you until you covered up your camera. Okay, it's 6 o'clock and we have a quorum, so I'll call this meeting of the March 2nd, 2021 meeting of the Smithville Planning and Zoning Commission to order. I've introduced the members of the commission. I am Brian Brewy. I am the chair. Members, have you had a chance to look at the minutes of the January 5th meeting? And if so, any comments or changes?
And from me.
I read them and I move that we accept the minutes as submitted.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of the January 5th, 2021 meeting as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none opposed, the minutes pass. We'll move directly to our one and only discussion item tonight is discussion and action on a multiple variance request, including a 5-foot height regulation to increase building height from 35 feet to 40 feet and change from 2.5 stories to a 3-story building and 2 rear yard setbacks. One 15-foot rear yard variance for Highway 71 setback and a 10-foot rear yard setback variance to the adjoining south property. Owner in the L&R Business Park, Lot 1, acres 0.5020. Property number R90283. Property owner Burn Street LLC and agent Charles Hodges. Do we have anyone who has signed up to speak to this matter, Tracy?
No, sir. No one signed up for or against.
Okay. And Mr. Hodges?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You're here as the appointed agent for Burn Street LLC, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, my understanding is that the request is the current property is zoned commercial 3. And what the owner of the property would like to do is to build 3 townhome structures on this half-acre lot. As zoned as commercial 3, but to be constructing multifamily structures in there, the requirements to be met are for the multifamily zone designation. And what you are requesting is to build a half-story taller buildings and to reduce the side and back variances from 25 feet down to 15 and 10 on the two sides. Have I characterized that correctly?
Yes, sir, I believe so.
Okay. I will note that I struggle with the ordinances to see that these meet the definition of townhomes
They're
as
not.
opposed to multifamily.
They're
But I
not.
look at the allowed uses within C3, and it does appear, at least from the handy dandy cheat notes at the back of the ordinances, to include multifamily structures. So if you have a presentation, would you like to tell us about your proposed project?
First off, my name is Chase Hodges, and I know it's shown as Charles in the document for some reason, but the name on the screen there is correct. So the property, and I don't know where there may have been a loss there, but the property is multifamily in terms of a 3-story, 3-unit apartment complex, or they would be single level condos. As opposed to a townhomes set up and as the way I would presume a townhome would be. And that's why we went with the multifamily. This property being that it's a C3 and knowing what the customer or landowner wants to do, we met with the city to do some preliminary evaluations of the site. And we came up through discussions with Jack and the city attorney that the classification of moving to a multifamily was correct in terms of the setbacks and in terms of our variance requests. And therefore we have these 4 requests in terms of the multifamily requirements in the city ordinances. So the desire for these particular variances have specifically things to do with the aesthetics of this property. We're fully aware that we could do what we're wanting to do with just a very standardized structure, rectangular in shape, and fit the scope and desire in terms of the quantity of condos for this property. However, my customer has a strong desire to make this development as beautiful as it can be, and therefore with the 3 units gives us a little bit more landscaping and structural and architectural appearance as opposed to just a standard regular rectangular box. To move into the request for the height variance to increase, to increase the building from 35 to 40 feet. This would allow us a slightly larger interior ceiling height, as well as better interstitial spaces for our ductwork, as well as other communications, water systems, things of that nature. But most importantly, allows us to give the roof and the parapet line some architectural features that we otherwise may not be able to. And so again, we reinstate our goals are to make this property as aesthetically pleasing to the area and be an attribute to the community as opposed to just a box. Furthermore, the rear yard variance along Highway 71 as well as the south yard variance allow us to provide adequate parking and access to the property, as well as these properties, are adjoining the highway right of way, as well as an adjoining C3 property and to the south. Again, I don't know, does everybody have the plan set where they provided that? Okay, so on, I guess, let me move my screen. 1 second, bear with me. So if you're reading through the document, the initial sheet or exhibit A.0 shows our rough site layout plan showing the access off of Hill Road, which is to the west of our property. And you can see the 3 buildings shown there. This property is, fairly triangular in shape, as you can see, and we are trying to optimize this property as well as be aesthetically pleasing again. And so these would be three single level, three buildings, 3 stories tall with single level condos at each level for each building. If you look to the right of that page in the top right corner, you can kind of see some of our architectural design elements, some of the things we viewed as what we thought would be nice to see in that area, as well as some of the reasonings in terms of through the middle of that sheet in terms of our estimations and our budget, our building summaries, as well as the zoning and ordinance requirements that have been laid out in the city ordinances. As we progress into Exhibit 8.1, this further states some of our design directives that we have found pleasing to us and would like to implement some of these features to this building. And that we just kind of wanted to show you our directive there, as well as the final page, Exhibit 8.2. This is these facilities approximately laid out on this piece of property to give you a better perspective as to what our desired look may be from a perspective from Hill Road. I can definitely go into further detail. There are specific questions to these variance requests. I tried to do my best to answer all the questions to the best of my abilities but I can definitely I feel like I can possibly answer them better over the call as opposed to in written words, but so fire away if you'd like.
Mr. Chairman, I have a few questions if you'll indulge me.
Sure, Tom, go ahead.
Yeah, and if these are out of line, let me know. A lot of this is just for my curiosity, so I have a little better understanding of what you're thinking of building there. These are configured as 3-story walk-ups, no elevators, right?
That's correct.
Okay, breezeways, are they conditioned space? Are they unconditioned space?
At this time, that's unclear.
Okay.
This is very conceptual.
And then these
at this moment, we have not gone beyond the conceptual aspects of this to determine those types of questions. The breezeways in terms of access to the 2nd and 3rd story, that would be a matter we would have to address at a later date. The goal here.
Fair enough. Again, I'm just, whatever you can tell me, I'm just curious more than anything, just to get a sense. The goal would be, I suspect that non-conditioned is pretty standard in the industry. So I'd be surprised if a project this small had conditioned corridors, but I was just curious as to whether that determination had been made. The renderings, you spoke to it earlier.
Yes, sir.
The renderings are really just, they're not necessarily what the exteriors and the building materials will be. It's just indicative of some of the themes that you're interested in. Is that correct?
It could be a direction we're going to. If you look at the supplied images, that really was our design inspiration. And so,
okay, so a masonry type, contemporary type look is what you think is going to be built there.
That's to be determined, definitely. I mean, these are ideas. The reason behind where we're at right now is to determine if we can get beyond this point with this type of layout and desired look. If we, for some reason, are not successful, then we'll have to rethink that matter. But the desire is to do something. Our goal is not to build a facility that just sticks out like a sore thumb, but the idea is, we all know the area is moving and very rapidly in many directions, and we are trying to produce facilities that would be attractive to new persons to the community, nice dwellings, finishes, exterior appeal, as well as, give that area or the town a different, not a different look. It's not historical downtown, of course, but we're not in historical downtown either. So something that's appealing to a customer that may be coming from a different place to relocate here for the charm of Smithville as well as the proximity to other larger metropolitan areas.
Okay. And is there a requirement for a separate egress and ingress for emergency vehicles, or is one meet the code development requirements?
Based on my understanding right now, one would meet the requirement.
Okay. And you referenced ceiling heights as a basis for the variance. So do you anticipate those ceiling heights being 9 foot?
That would be the desire. Really, the variance request allowed us the structural integrity space as well as requirements for HVAC systems and that nature. And so we can fit in a smaller space, but we have a desire to make these condos, noise proof as possible and not have to worry here about you hearing your neighbor. And so by allowing a deeper interstitial space that allows us a deeper bar joist or structural space, and then as well as insulation and construction materials to minimize that noise transfer. And so the idea behind the higher story, the story one, but additionally the overall height was not just a grab for the ceiling space, but it had a lot to do with the parapet, to be able to hide types of equipment up there if they need to be placed on the roof, as well as architecturally give the top of the building some character, as opposed to just a singular elevation.
Okay, just the last couple of quick questions. Is there any floodplain on this site? Any meaningful floodplain?
No, there's not.
Okay, and then you refer to these as condos. Do you anticipate this being a formal condo regime, or are you just referring to that because they're single floor units?
Can you explain what you mean by that?
Each unit is it going to be a condo regime, or is this going to be to where these individual units could in fact be conveyed separately at some point in the future, or are they not envisioned to be sold?
They're not envisioned to be sold separately. Okay. I'm terming them condos in terms of their level of quality, as opposed to they're not going to be individually sold. They're going to be a single entity.
Okay, I understand. That's all I had. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I had a couple of questions too. So these are flat roofs. You say you'd be hiding, I guess, air conditioning units or whatever up on the roof?
The roof slope and structures to be determined at this time. My architect had a very fancy word to use for the idea and the request behind that. And effectively, it's to allow us to do some type of elevation change, step downs in the parapet wall. Depending on how things were to finish out, the elevation we're granted, that will be determined later. We don't have a clear picture as to what that will be just yet. But a lot of the ideas here, again, to reinstate it further, would be for the architectural features and quality when we get further through the project. Right.
Has there been any consideration to any kind of a water collection thing to go for landscaping the area? Or?
Not at this time, no, ma'am.
Okay.
We have not traveled that road yet.
Okay, I was just curious, since we're doing the eco green stuff, the solar panels and water collection, I was just curious. Thank you.
Nancy or Diana, do you have any questions?
I'm good.
Nancy, you're on mute.
Not at this time.
Nancy, I was hoping you were going to have some math questions. So I'll ask some math questions. Chase, can you confirm to me that these structures will comply with the maximum coverage on this size lot and these in the formulas for maximum coverage? I believe on a lot of this size, it's the greater 15,000 square feet or the square feet of the rental units. Have you done those calculations to confirm that they?
We believe we've hit every mark on the ordinance as stated that are in the document. I can't speak to that specifically at this time. I would have to go back and review that and get back to you. And you're talking in terms of not exceeding the maximum space coverage, is that correct?
You're talking impervious cover?
Well, the minimum open space and maximum lot coverage, 30% and 70%. Appropriately, that's in the requirements for multifamily. Since you haven't requested variances for that, I just wanted to confirm that it appears, and I'm not a lawyer, not a mathematician, I can add and subtract, and I know a little bit of algebra. It appeared to me that they were within compliance and variances weren't required for, at least as proposed construction.
I believe
What
that
you
we
provided is
addressed that in our layout, and that was one of the, these things that we talked about and looked at. I can't speak exactly to the exact percentage, but in coming to you guys, we've done our best to take into account all the requirements for multifamily as well as the site coverage, as so I would say yes, that we are well within that percentage, or that would have been a request that we would have put in as well.
Well, as I said, I was looking for confirmation of my math. It's like my algebra teacher said, I couldn't get credit for it unless I showed my work. And, I think I know the answers to my questions, but I was just looking to see, and the information and what you provided me, to me, appears to be in conformity.
Well, it's definitely something we can confirm and get back with you with if need be, for sure.
Okay, are there any other questions? Any comments from Jack or Robert?
No,
Hearing-
I think everything's fine. I mean, as we're speaking right now, obviously there's a lot more when we get into the civil side of it, there's a lot more that we will have to deal with. But as far as setbacks and everything else, I think we're pretty good as we're standing right now.
Thanks, Jack. That's what I was looking for. I understand that these are preliminary conceptual, but it helps us to understand what's being proposed, and I did the math and wanted to make sure we weren't looking at something that from the beginning might be out of compliance. And so that was the nature of my question.
Brian, this is Robert. Just wanted to say, Chase, this is a very good packet. You've addressed the variance criteria with more detail than I've seen in quite some time. I just wanted to give you that feedback.
Thank you.
Thanks, Robert, for that comment. Obviously, members of the commission, we're quite familiar with what's required for us to consider in order to make our recommendations, and what things the city has to be able to find in order to grant variances. And if we deny variances, specifically what issues that are involved in the granting or denying variance we have considered. So having said that, if there are no other questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, pursuant to the discussion of the merits of the variances requested, there are special circumstances or conditions affecting the land such that strict application of the ordinance would deprive the applicant's reasonable use of the land. And 2, the variances are necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of a substantial property right of the applicant. And 3, the variances will not be detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare, or injurious to other property in the area. And 4, the variances will not prevent the orderly subdivision of other land in the area. As such, I move the following 4 variances for the applicant Burn Street LLC for the property known as LNR Business Park Lot 1, 0.5020 acres, be granted as follow: 5-foot building height increase from 35 foot to 40 foot, 3 stories from 2.5 stories, rear yard setback along Highway 71 from 25 feet to 10 feet, and rear yard setback from the adjoining south property from 25 foot to 15 foot.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Or Nancy, you're right. We both kind of raised our hand.
I'm sorry. I second. I was waving.
I've got multiple seconds for the record. I will take Caroline's since she was not muted. I'm not going to attempt to repeat the motion. Tom, you did an excellent job of framing that. I take it that everyone understands the variances that are being requested. So all in favor of recommending the request for variances, raise your hand. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Mr. Hodges, as you know, the planning and zoning does not make a final decision. We will make a recommendation to the city council at their next meeting to recommend the granting of the variance request. Do you have any questions?
No, sir, not at this time. I appreciate y'all's time.
All right. We've been very efficient today. That was the last item on our agenda. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second.
I got a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
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 Approved by acclamation. Thank you all very much. Have a good evening.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
Bye.
Good job. Good job.
Thank you.